Hi, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo. I am Gloria Bailey Ray, your host. I'm excited that you guys decided to join us. As always, we got a fantastic show for you. My guest today is Miss Katurah Bryant, who holds a BSc from the University of Connecticut. She's a licensed marriage family therapist. She's a licensed addictions counselor, a certified clinical supervisor, and get this, she is the author and she's the founder of the ZOLA Experience, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So look, you got questions, be sure and put them in the comment. We will get to them as quickly as possible. And I'm just excited that you guys are here with us today. So I want to start by reading this quote and bringing Katurah in. You guys are all aware of what's been happening. COVID, it has impacted all of us. If it hasn't personally impacted you, it's impacted someone you know. So as a result of the impact of grief and loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial crisis, I found this interesting. I was reading this from Ms. Katurah. Many individuals and communities are struggling to find acceptance and closure. The most obvious loss is the loss of loved ones. And as a result of the crisis, how people transition has changed. And she's going to be able to talk to us about that. And family members, they're not allowed to take part in these transitions and what's happening. So this has created a level of grief that makes closure challenging. However, many people are also suffering from the loss of careers, retirement, not to mention income and wealth. And so with that said, I want to welcome to the show Miss Katurah Bryant. Katurah, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's late back there where you are, but for joining us on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just very humbled and honored to be on your platform. And I pray that at the end of our session, we will have added value to many, many lives.
Yeah, I am right there with you. So let's just jump right in and let's start with this. Tell us about how the ZOLA Experience came about. Yeah, because people are questioning, what is that? What does that mean? I'm curious. I can't wait to hear. So, let's start with that.
Well, I have worked in the field as a psychiatric nurse and an addiction specialist before I went to graduate school to add that to my repertoire in marriage and family therapy. I've been working with a recovering community, and it's always been a challenge somewhat because that population experiences a great deal of loss. And we've heard about, the 5 stages of grief, but there really wasn't anything concretely out there that really spoke clearly to how do you move people through past the actual loss. And the 5 stages of grief was really designed for the person that was transitioning. And so it always intrigued me, and it was always a need that I thought needed to be addressed. And I fortunately first approached a good friend of mine who owns several funeral services in the state of Connecticut, and I happened to be at a funeral, and I said to him, I was like, what do you do after the funeral? How do people have closure? And he says, well, I don't know. Do you have any ideas? And I said, actually, I do. And he invited me to come speak with him. And that's really, once we began to, I bought him the concept. I bought him the ideas as to how, as a therapist, that I believe that people could move through this experience. I always try to find things that have meaning. And so in trying to come up with a name for the concept that I had, I pray over a lot of things, and I prayed over that. And the word ZOLA came to me. And ZOLA is an African word, West African word that means to love. And when you think about going through this whole transition with the rituals of funerals or the rituals of what people do at loss, it really is about love, loving yourself and loving that individual to be able to support them through such an experience. So that is how the ZOLA experience came about. It was just really me trying to fill a need from clinically for myself, as well as my colleagues, as well as most importantly, the community.
Yeah. Yeah. And, going back to something that you said, being at a funeral, having had experience myself working in a funeral home and meeting with families and dealing with people who are grieving, it's amazing to me that that one key point that you made in the book is that where do people go? Right? What happens next? What's the next step? And people just think it's kind of like it's something that you just kind of wrap up and tape it in a box and put it to the side. And that is not the case at all. So I thought that was really interesting. I was very intrigued by the book and really looking at how do we deal with grief? What is happening, and the fact that how you define what ZOLA means. So with that, when we talk about grief, let's talk about that for a minute, because there are so many aspects to grief. And it's amazing. I've talked to people and they've lost a spouse and they say, "Oh, I'm not grieving. I expected it." And that's the farthest thing actually from the truth, because it's just that people grieve in different ways. And I think that that's this disbelief in our society that on one hand you're supposed to be downtrodden and not eating and just looking horrible. But on the other side, if people get really busy and start doing a lot of stuff, and then there are those people that kind of fall in between. So when we talk about grief, in your opinion, what is grief? If there's actually a technical term that you can put to it.
Well, grief in and of itself is a natural thing that people go through in loss, regardless of what kind of loss it is. And as I've stated in my book, we expanded the ZOLA experience from not just dealing with the loss of a loved one, but the loss of anything. And so we have to have some level of closure. And the grief process is really your opportunity that the Creator gave us for us to process the loss and for us then to move on past that immediate intense pain of the loss. It does not say that you will forget about the individual or you'll forget about the experience, but you'll be able to move through it. You'll be able to move past it so that you can get on with the rest of your life. So the ZOLA experience is really designed for the rest of your life, the life after the loss. So there is no blueprint to grieving. People grieve in many, many different ways. There's a module in the ZOLA experience. There's 7 steps that's part of the recovery process in the ZOLA experience. And our 3rd session is really about self-care. And the self-care piece really speaks to what have you been doing to take care of yourself, or how has it manifested? How has your grieving manifested? Some people, they go into workaholism, some into alcohol, drugs, sex, food. There's a number of ways that people sometimes express their grief. It doesn't necessarily mean that they become catatonic and sit down and become extremely depressed. No, it can manifest in many, many different ways. And when you don't talk about things, that energy can then be displaced. So then you find that relationships oftentimes don't survive after a major loss of basically almost anything, whether it's an individual or sometimes they don't survive a loss of income. So we're in a really kind of precarious situation with this whole COVID and quarantine and everything, because people are in a space and they're experiencing all these multiple losses, and then what do you do with that? And so the ZOLA Experience really is it's a training manual as well as a self-help book. And so that's how I think that it can help people with grief.
Yeah. And you just touched on so many different aspects of dealing with loss, right? Because there's so many people that ended up, they went from, unfortunately, is probably, well, I can say this. I feel like that there are a lot of people who their whole life, it evolved or revolved around their jobs. And so to lose that job family, to lose that income, to lose the camaraderie, it's very, very impactful. And it's amazing. There are people who I've talked to, even people that they said, oh, they would get on my nerve, but they even miss that. And so it's still a sense of loss. Unfortunately, I have not heard until I started reading your book about the ZOLA Experience. Not a lot of employers are, that they're even, I think at that point where they say, I really need to do something to help, my employees. I need to be able to do something to help these people. It's just that people are all over the place. And then compound that with the people having to be quarantined with COVID, then losing not one, not two, several family members, all pretty much at the same time. Then the piece where the families who are having to deal with their children, and their children, here they are having to homeschool. I mean, it's so much. And I just can't underscore that this is real. And grief is real. And so whether you look at it one way or the other, it's a loss. And so that was one of the things that really, really intrigued me in terms of having you talk about, the ZOLA Experience, but even more so, talk about grief. So I'm going to switch gears on you for a moment.
Okay.
And at the same time, we're talking about grief, but describe what you mean when you talk about spiritual balance.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I talk about spiritual balance, I kind of you expand it in the sense of it doesn't necessarily mean religious. It can encompass your philosophy of how you move throughout your day, how you move throughout the planet, and what helps you. And to find that space where, you can embrace your reality and move forward. So that's when I try to help people to, part of the experience is really to get them to think about how has their spiritual or their philosophical understanding supported them through loss. And it can be, whatever that loss has been, or how has it helped them throughout their life. And so when we talk about that spiritual balance, that's really where my focus is in the book. Because, people express their spirituality and their philosophy of life very, very uniquely and very differently. And so out of, trying to come to that space of respecting everyone's expression, that's when we talk about their spiritual balance.
Mm-hmm. All right, awesome. Well, we've got a couple of comments, but we're going to just take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to tell some of the viewers they want to know how they can get the book. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I want to bring you back in and let's talk about the two absolutes that you talk about, okay. Life and death. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
If doctors, nurses, and grocery store clerks can wear a mask for 10 or 12-hour shifts, you can wear a mask for an hour or less when you go to the store. Do your part. Mask up, America.
1 in 3 adults has pre-diabetes. That means it could be you, your favorite brother, your other brother, yes. You, your football buddy, your football buddy, you, your plumber.
Breathe right into your foot.
Your plumber's masseuse.
Yes.
You, your dog walker, your cat jogger. With early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
All right. If you are just tuning in, I have as my guest today on You Didn't Get the Memo, Miss Katurah Bryant, and she is the author and the founder of the ZOLA Experience, the ZOLA Experience. So before we went to break, we had a question from a viewer wanted to know about how they could get the book. And usually I save that for last, but I love it. And people are asking for it. Hey, go on and go get the book. So in the comment is, I believe in us just lifting people up, that a dear friend who went to the emergency last week with stomach problems only to discover that he has stomach cancer and no one can visit. So this falls in line with what we're talking about, grieving. You're thinking one thing and here's something else. So before we went to break, one of the questions that I posed to you was to talk about the two absolutes that you speak of, death and change. So I know that you want to just tell everybody where they can go to get the book. So do you want to let everyone know where they can go?
Absolutely. They can go to our website, which is www.thezolaexperience.com, and you'll be able to get the book through there. And there's just a number of different things on that platform that I think will be of value to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I talk about the inevitability of death and change, we're granted life. And so we also recognize that there will come a point in time when this physical shell in which I am in will transition to a higher vibration. And so that's really an inevitable thing. And we don't know when that will happen. The other thing that is truly, truly guaranteed is change. And, people sometimes walk into situations, they kick, they scream. But the reality is that change is going to happen, whether you choose to gracefully embrace it or you think that you can kick and scream and make it go away. So I generally will tell people, clients may sit in front of me and say, Ms. Katurah, I don't do well with change. And it's like, well, you've been living with change all of your life. Look at your baby picture. You don't look the same as you did when you were born. Now you're 50 years old. So yeah, you do okay with change. Now, whether you want to accept that as part of your reality today, that's a whole nother thing. But change is inevitable. And, you can either make good use of time or you can make time will use you. So I always try to encourage people to embrace change because it is something that is just what it's supposed to be. It's inevitable. And if we embrace it, then things will be a little bit less of a challenge, less of a struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wholeheartedly agree with you in that regard. And then one of the things that we don't hear people talk a lot about, and that's just being vulnerable. A lot of times, for people of color, we feel like that we need to walk around and we need to exhibit this strength. We're supposed to be strong. We're not supposed to break down. And I just find that to be the farthest thing from the truth, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm talking to someone who deals with this all the time, and both of us as nurses, but I don't buy into that as it relates to you need to be just strong and strong for everybody else, because at the end of the day, I'm always like, well, who's strong for me?
That's right. That's right. So that's that when that self-care comes in as well.
Yes.
And we generally will create different group settings during that particular session. That is the only session that we have like breakouts. And those individuals, however way they identify themselves, if you identify yourself male or identify female or other means of identification, we try to separate the groups so that you have a sense of comfort just because of that identification. Mm-hmm. And it inevitably it allows people to have an honest discussion, and for them to be validated by other individuals in that space that says, I hear you. I started drinking wine every night after my husband died, or and sometimes referrals will come out of these discussions, because and the facilitator doesn't necessarily have to be a licensed clinical person. The ZOLA experience is really designed for community organizers and facilitators. It's like someone is saying, look, I'm really struggling. Then you say, well, you have a list of community referrals, give them the list and tell them to please follow up with that. So the idea, I want to say a little bit more about that a lot of it is very cultural.
Okay, go ahead.
The strong Black woman, or being a strong Black man, or, particularly with our community. And it just gets displaced. It doesn't go anywhere. It just gets displaced, and it manifests itself through perhaps unhealthy avenues, and domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or interpersonal violence. Sometimes it shows up there. Sometimes it just shows up in like, oh yeah, Miss So-and-so, she's just always mean. Okay, but people will find a way to relieve that energy that is inside of them. And grief and loss is an energy. And so we got to figure out a way to channel the energy. And then when you couple that on top of messages that we are given about little boys don't cry. Well, it hurts. And God has given us this natural thing called tears that come to our eyes when we are in pain. And so it's so important that, there's a session there when we talk about messages from family of origin. Children learn what they live, and adults live what they've learned. And so if you have been given that message all the time, that you've got to be the strong one, that you've got to, little boys don't cry, little girls, you're going to help mom or whatever. We've got to change the tape. We've got to change the message and give ourselves permission to go through our natural process. It doesn't constitute strength or weakness. It just is what it is.
Right. I'm so glad to hear you expound on that, because, we have some of the comments. Self-care is turned into remembering what I was taught was one comment. Someone else says, I'm learning to care for myself better. And that is so important. And through life, I know for me, you take care of everybody else, and that's supposed to be seen as, oh, that's a wonderful, great thing. But I'm falling apart. And it's like, all because if I don't take care of me, I'm never going to be able to really take care of anybody else. And I just think that we've got to change that messaging. And you're so right. We hear it all the time. Little boys, suck it up. You're not supposed. And a perfect example, I'm a big sports fanatic, and they were showing the young man in Kansas City who had a big concussion, and he got hit, and they were saying, they were talking, usually he got up and why he ran into the tunnel to make it look like he was all right. But it's like, dude, somebody just clocked you, and you're trying to act like you are not hurt. I'm sorry. And for the men that are tuned in, let's just say that there is definitely benefit to crying tears. That has been proven time and time again. So it's so important. We have a couple of other comments. Yes, you're the one we can depend on, was the message I got growing up. I'm now tired of being hurt. So good for you.
Yes. And it's so interesting because part of the ZOLA experience is that at the end, they will, the goal is for you to come out as a cohesive group. And we even have a piece in there where they give themselves a name once they've all gone through the experience together. And it just becomes one part of their tool chest one part of their support system. And we talk a lot about developing your support system and having a variety of different types of support networks. I mean, I have many different circles that I travel in. I have a professional circle. I have a sister circle. I have a sorority circle. I have a number of things. It's a circle of people that are totally into exercise because I need that accountability as well. So when we talk about, and when you look at the symbol of the ZOLA experience, it's a hand. And there's 10 fingers, obviously, in the hand. Mm-hmm. And each of those fingers represents one aspect of your tool chest, one aspect of your support network.
Yes.
And the idea is that you can go in and out of these supportive hands because they're always going to be there for you. And you can go and do life, but you know there is a place where you can go. And if that one place is your ZOLA experience cohort, then that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Someone is just so touched by ZOLA was her dad's name. And this was the first time that she had ever heard what the meaning of his name was. So that in itself is so very, very special. Very, very special.
Absolutely.
And this is great. Yeah. So let me ask you about this. Let's talk about the role that stress plays in our lives in relation to the ZOLA experience. Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yes.
All right. Yes.
There's people always misstate this. They always talk about stress management. And one of my mentors, Dr. Michael Smith, who is one of the founders of the National Acupuncture Detox Association, which is the NADA protocol. And so I spent many, many hours at his feet drinking his knowledge. And he was like, nope, you don't want stress to manage you. You want to manage your stress. So really, we should be telling people we're going to talk about management of stress, because once the stress overtakes you, you're just symptomatic. You just got to deal with it. But ideally, we want to be able to manage stress, and it can come through a number of things. We give you some tips in the book that you can take with you. We talk about the importance of breathing and how you can do a breathing exercise, visualization. We talk about other avenues to manage your stress, and which is so much a part of your self-care is the management of your stress. We teach people a very simple intervention with tapping. Nick Ottner and his crew, they have this whole program called the Tapping Solution. And so I subscribe to that, and I know that is something that works. Ear acupuncture works, but we oftentimes, particularly in the age of COVID, we have to give people things that they can do without somebody doing it to them. So the acupuncture and things like that, that's something that someone has to do to you. But you can take a hot soaking bath. You can go for a long walk in nature. You can go sit at the beach. You can go sit in nature or in a place that's comfortable and safe for you. You can do breathing, deep breathing exercise. It takes 30 seconds. We practice it. You can do the tapping experience to yourself, with yourself. So we understand that it is so important that you manage your stress, because that is one of those constants in life. Oftentimes clients would say, I wish, my life wasn't so stressful. I want my life why can't it just be like this, calm and just like this? And I say to them, have you ever seen a monitor like on TV or in person? You're going to see somebody in the hospital and the monitor's going up and down. I said, what happens when the monitor goes like this? Then it's over. Now, what our goal may be is not to have what we call EEG machine ups and downs, which is a really sharp ups and downs. We would like sound waves of up and down, okay? And that means that you're truly managing your life, managing your stress, is that there are always going to be ups, there's always going to be downs. When you're, in those valleys, it doesn't say that you're going to walk through, you're going to stay in the valley. It says you're going to walk through the valley, and you're going to have support walking through the valley. And so it's important that we understand and recognize that we really want to live in the sound waves of life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really, really important. These things that you talk about, they sound so very simple, right? I am blown away at the number of people who tell me they don't have time to take a bath. Just relax. Simple things that doesn't cost you money. Learning the tapping, being able to just commune in nature, whether it's at the ocean, the beach, it's you're in a forest. It's so much, but we have become such a society that we're so caught up. It's like that little hamster that's on that, in that little cage, just running around and around and around and around and around. And so as a result of that, what ends up happening is, you're right. People are talking about, I'm so stressed out, and if I could just manage, get some stress relief. And that's really, really interesting. And I think that that's maybe one of the biggest challenges for you as a therapist, of just kind of getting people to embrace and to see, because that path is probably pretty narrow for a lot of people who've never gone down it before and who don't understand that. But it is vitally important, because you're flatline, all right. You have a heart attack, right, from stress. And stress manifests itself in so many ways: back pains, headaches, pains in your joints, eye pain. I hear people, and so much of it has to do with stress.
Yes. And the other thing that I would like to support people to do is to carve out a space in your living environment. It can be a corner of your room that you put, things that bring you joy, things that help you to remember the beauty of life. It can be pictures of your ancestors. It can be pictures of your kids. Whatever it is, just find yourself a space. It doesn't have to be big. Just carve that little space out, and so that's your place where you can go. Like in the Bible, or and you hear the elders talk about a prayer closet. That's a common thing. They talk about, find your prayer closet. Yes. Well, you might be able to carve out a physical closet. And I'm trying to, give people creative ways to do this during quarantines. But you can find just a little wall space. And let everybody know that, that might be the space where everybody can go to and say, instead of, making time out to be a negative thing, it's like, look, I need to take some spiritual time out. I'm going to go to our wall, to our sanctuary.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. You touched on so many things, but we need to just take a quick break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you, let's kind of get into the ZOLA Experience. There are 7 sessions to the ZOLA Experience, and I'd like for you to just kind of briefly talk us through that. So when we come back, for those of you who are just tuning in, we're having this dynamic conversation with the author and the founder of the ZOLA Experience, Miss Katurah Bryant. So guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand, trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
I work out every day. COVID won't kill me.
I'm 24. COVID won't kill me.
I have antibodies. COVID won't kill me.
It's been a long week. COVID won't kill me.
I'm 25. COVID won't kill me.
I'm partying outside. COVID won't kill me.
I don't need to wear a mask around my friends. COVID won't kill me.
I'm 23. COVID won't kill me.
If I haven't gotten it yet, COVID won't kill me.
I'm young. COVID won't kill me.
Famous last words. Don't let them be yours. Socially distance. Mask up, America.
Hi, I want to thank you guys for hanging in here with us. We have with us as my guest today, Miss Katurah Bryant, who is the author and founder of the ZOLA Experience. And it is deep. We are just talking about so many things that we all need to be aware of as relates to dealing with a grief process, dealing with stress, so many things. And so before we went to break, I asked Katurah if she would come back and let's talk about, there are 7 sessions that she talks about in her book for the ZOLA Experience, and to talk us through what these are. And so Katurah, I'm punting the ball back to you. Let's talk about what those 7 sessions are.
Yes, so there's 7 steps or 7 sessions that we have with the ZOLA Experience. And your first session is getting to know you. And we do a nice exercise to really highlight the strengths within the group, and to validate for people that they really know how to get through this experience, because the majority of us have had losses in the past. And then we build upon that by talking about we've come this far by faith. And that's really to examine your spiritual or your philosophical strengths and trying to find a balance there that has and is going to continue to help you get through this process. The third one is the messages from your family of origin. Adults learn what they live, children learn what they live, adults live what they've learned. And this is the session on self-care. We also focus on messages that you received from your family of origin about how do you handle loss of anything, a job, a pet, whatever. How did your system handle loss? And to have a conversation about that. And when you experience loss, when you were growing through your, however old you are at this particular time, what was the message? Was it good grief, or was there people that said, we're stoic here, we will not talk about it? And how's that working out for you? And what are the things that you would like to choose to change? And then we talk about, in session 4, the benefits of closure. And this is one that you talk about your lost love object, and you write a letter to your lost love object. And there's instructions on how to do that and what you're supposed to do. That is truly an important piece, because we want you to, people oftentimes say, if I only could say one last thing. Well, this exercise gives you that opportunity to do that one last thing. And then the other piece is lessons in forgiveness. And regardless of what relationship that you have with whomever, your job, with your body part, with death of someone, there is oftentimes residual. And we're oftentimes are not even given permission to even think that we need to forgive someone that has died. It feels like, oh my God, that's horrible, they're dead. But you're alive, and you're carrying thoughts, feelings, and emotions in reference to your relationship with that situation, that person, or that entity. So we give you an opportunity to examine that, to examine, owning your peace and letting go of the rest. That is very crucial for you to be able to move forward. And then we talk about a legacy tribute. And this helps to bring closure as well, that you can be creative in your legacy tribute. It's a concrete expression of I'm okay with where I am, and I'm going to move forward. But I'm also going to remember you in a way that is helpful for me. For example, I had a woman that she lost her career. And so we went through the ZOLA experience and recognizing there was, her piece, their piece, and coming to some sense of peace about it. And so her legacy tribute was, one, she decided, I am going to take myself to a spa on the day that I got let go from that job, because I'm going to celebrate me. And as a result of celebrating me, I have gone on with my life. I'm back in school. I've discovered an interest that is going to serve me much greater and bring me much more joy than what that experience was. And sometimes out of crisis comes opportunity. And she definitely resembled that. And then there was a gentleman whose wife passed, and she had a flower garden, and he let it overgrow for the last 2 or 3 years until he came through the ZOLA experience. And his legacy was that he was going to revive that garden and make it a beautiful space in honor of his deceased wife. So your legacy tribute can be anything. We've had people do 5K runs or marathons because their loved one was a coach. So it can be anything. And then your last session is coming together as one. And this is when your cohort comes up with a name that you will carry and that will keep you connected. And there's an exchange of information so that you see yourselves as a cohesive, supportive group. Now, you may not, there's some groups that have chosen to gather and they're still gathering, whether through Zoom or whatever. And then there's those individuals that, they correspond, but they know that that particular group is there, that has had a like experience. And so they know that that is now part of their tool chest. It's now as part of their helping hands for them to get through life. And so those are the things that we do in the ZOLA experience. And we pull all of that together. And it truly has been a divine experience for me. So, and I'll talk perhaps a little bit about that in a few minutes.
Okay. Well, one of the comments from one of the viewers was, what great examples that you gave. And for me, there were a couple of things that stuck out. And you touch on that when you talk about the man and out of trials, tribulations, or grief, it opens up a whole nother world. But two things. You said that ZOLA is the essence of the process of grief, as well as the essence of life. Mm-hmm. And for whatever reason, that just resonated with me. Mm-hmm. It's an African origin word that means to love. The moving on past the loss is a true testament of love. Mm-hmm. Love of self, as well as the transitioned loved one. That is powerful, Katurah. And here's the thing, you then go on to say, then there are other times when the loss is clearly a mental and physical relief for the one who has transitioned, as well as those that remain on this side of the plane. Mm-hmm. Regardless, the universe makes no mistakes, and it becomes our job to understand the wisdom in the actions of one's higher power. And I'm reading that, and like I said, I just tabbing and marking is my book. So and I'm reading these things, and I just find that it is so very, very powerful for what it is that you're talking about. And I'm so happy that you would bring a book like this, to life. You birthed this baby. You totally birthed it. So, yeah. And I see we've got, quite a few comments. Just ordered your book. Great examples. Truly learning so much. So one of the things that I normally tell people, you didn't get the memo, is really about providing people with relevant mainstream information to help them be informed and to make informed decisions. And you truly embody that. So I thank you so much for that. So, question for you. Viewers, as it relates to, you talked about the book, but people want to know more about the ZOLA experience. So what would you like for them to know to find out more about the ZOLA experience? Where can they go? What can they do?
All right. The main place for you to go is to the It's all things ZOLA, www.ZOLAexperience.com. There are two aspects to the ZOLA experience. One are those individuals that I feel like my mission at this point in time, from the gift that was given to me at 3:30 and at 5:30 in the morning in May, was that, Spirit told me that I was going to do ZOLA differently. It wasn't just about doing the individual session, me doing the individual session or my teams. I see this as a global movement of training individuals to be ZOLA facilitators. So, if you would, I'm encouraging people in all aspects of the community to become a ZOLA facilitator, become one of the healers in the community. And you can inquire about that on the website as well. And then there's the other side where people have been getting the book and they've been going to the website and they've been asking me, I just want to experience the ZOLA experience. I don't want to go through, I don't want to be a facilitator. I just want to have the ZOLA experience. You can give that inquiry as well on the website in the memo when you subscribe, and the admin will get that information back to me as well. So the ZOLA experience is two-faceted, and my heart's desire is to have ZOLA facilitators in every continent in the world and in every community, because loss is a universal thing, but we need to know how to get through it in a healthy way.
Yeah, absolutely. So before, as we round out this particular session, one of the things I think is key, and we hadn't talked about this, but I'm just going to tell you, some of your affirmations are just dope, period. Okay. They are, I was like, wow. For instance, you can either be a host to God, higher power, or a hostage to your ego. That in itself, I mean, it really will cause you to take an introspective look at, and I know for me, I find myself all the time saying, am I doing this for me? Am I doing it for the accolades? And I always come back, I do it because I want people to know. I want to be able to share the knowledge. And I love the fact that you think so globally. You want the ZOLA experience to be all over the world. That's real. People die all over the world. But another affirmation that you have, and we don't do a lot of this. If I like myself, if I trust myself, then the liking and the trusting will be echoed in my relationship with you.
That's right. When you think about that,
yes,
because you're coming at a very healthy place, and when you can attain that, because if you're looking outside of yourself for validation,
right,
that may not happen, and it may not happen in a way that you perceive that you need it, but you're asking another human being to do that for you. And that's, that may not happen. And then you'll be disappointed. And then it just starts really an interesting downward spiral. So
yes,
we'll put those affirmations in there. We use them during the training. I want people to be reflective throughout that. And I'll give you an exclusive, Gloria.
Okay.
This is the first time I'm actually talking about this in public, but I am finishing up the ZOLA Experience journey. And it is a journal that people will be able to use, and hopefully it'll help them to continue in their growth and development. There'll be plenty of spaces to write, but most importantly, there'll be a number of vignettes that I have written that will help to stimulate them to begin to think about life in the reference to those little vignettes that basically cross everything from, I have a piece in there about my journey with my dad, who recently passed about 3 years ago.
Yes.
The relationship with that. And, the fact, and I was being very real. We didn't really have a, touchy-feely relationship. We just had a relationship.
Right.
But in the end, when we were spending that time, that's when the healing began between the two of us. And God blessed us with those 6-8 weeks. So that's your exclusive, Gloria.
All right. I love it. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. So before we go, I got to read just one more affirmation. And then what I like for you to ask you, which I normally ask of my guests, is, what 1 or 2 things would you really like to leave the viewers with? Okay. And this one stuck with me. And you said, do not let your heart's desire become a heart's desire. And you got to read that several times over to really get the meaning. And I was like, oh, okay. So that is just some of the things, y'all, from the ZOLA Experience with Miss Katurah Bryant. So if you didn't get the book, you need to go get the book. And she's told you. Katurah, would you like to tell people again how they can get the book?
Please go to the website, www.thezolaexperience.com.
Mm-hmm.
And you will be able to get the book through the link there. And just come and browse and take what you need and leave the rest, as we say.
Yeah, I heard that. Absolutely. Well, as we conclude today's session, I would like for you to just kind of reflect on what 1 or 2 things would you like to leave the viewers with before we close out today?
The number 1 thing is around taking care of yourself. Regardless of what's going on, please begin to embrace self-care. And because that's what's going to get you through these life experiences. It's going to help you to manage stress, and it'll help you to be more present for the people that you need to be present for. The other thing is that communities, I want to encourage you to become a ZOLA facilitator. You do not have to be a formally trained clinician. You can be the person that's in charge of your women's ministry. The book and the training is broken down so that it crosses all avenues of preparedness. And we all are prepared with life. And if we have a desire to help to strengthen other human beings, then become a ZOLA facilitator. And we're having a training coming up. Go to the website and you'll get that information. It is my heart's desire that you will be part of the legion of the ZOLA Experience facilitators.
Yeah, I really like that. And I like you said, it's something that I think so many organizations are missing, and to be able to be trained and to do that. So great suggestions. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Miss Katurah Bryant, for being on our show today. I say this to all of you. If you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's you who didn't get the memo. Please be sure and tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time for another episode of You Didn't Get the Memo. Next week, my guest is going to be Dr. Bernie Hanna, who is a bariatric surgeon, and we're going to be talking about weight loss options. Yes, weight loss options. So be sure and follow me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Remember this, that the quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. Until next week, I want you to be safe, practice social distance, wear a mask, always practice good hand washing, and I want you to know how truly blessed you are. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo. Guys, be well. God bless.